Good morning, class 8. Welcome back to your biology classroom once again. Hope all of you watched the last video. Now I am going to discuss reflex action. So let's start and look at your book. The spinal cord controls some action that do not involve the brain. For example, if you step on a sharp object, you instantly withdraw your foot. This reaction is automatic and does not involve thinking about it. It is called reflex action. So basically some action are happening which are not controlled by brain. It is specially controlled by nervous spinal cord. This type of automatic action is also known as reflex action. Thus, an automatic, spontaneous and mechanical response to a stimulus controlled by the spinal cord without involvement of the brain is called reflex action. The nerve pathway of reflex action is called reflex arc. So the pathway of reflex action, जिस pathway के द्वारा reflex action happening, normally this pathway को हम लोग क्या बोलेंगे? Reflex arc. The reflex arc involves three neurons: sensory neurons, associations neurons, and motor neurons. How does it occur? First, a stimulus trigger an impulse in a receptor, which could be any sensory organ or structure that receive the stimulus. At first क्या होता है? A stimulus trigger an impulse a receptor, which could be any sensory organ or structure that receive the stimulus. Normally stimulus एक trigger पैदा करता है, impulse पैदा करता है receptor के अंदर. So normally which could be sensory organ or any structure that receive the stimulus. The impulse then travel from the receptor through a sensory neuron to the spinal cord. So impulse collect करने के बाद ये impulse receptor के द्वारा normally sensory neuron से लेकर spinal cord तक बहती है. In the spinal cord, it passes through an association neuron to a motor neuron and finally reaches the muscle of the effector organ. तो द स्पाइनल कॉर्ड में ये इम्पल्स पहुंचने के बाद एसोसिएशन न्यूरॉन इसको कलेक्ट करने के बाद मोटर न्यूरॉन एंड फाइनली रीचेस द मसल ऑफ द इफेक्टर न्यूरॉन. सो आफ्टर गेटिंग द इम्पल्स फ्रॉम स्पाइनल कॉर्ड टू एसोसिएशन न्यूरॉन, इट passes through the motor neuron and finally reaches the muscle of particular effector organ. The muscle of the effector organ contract, moving it away from the stimulus. Next, some common example of reflex action are sneezing when an unwanted particle entered the nose, blinking of eyes when a foreign particles entered the eyes, immediate withdrawal of hand if you unknowingly touch a hot object, withdrawal of a leg if you suddenly step on a nail while walking barefoot. Knee jerk reflex is in response to the tapping under the knee. So these are the common examples. So student, you will learn the example only. Next, how do messages reach the brain? The peripheral nervous system transmit message to and from the sense organ and is responsible for voluntary actions such as cycling, swimming, and so on. Incoming messages enter the spinal cord from all parts of the body and reach the brain, which sends back the message to the various body parts through the spinal cord. So what is the incident? At first, peripheral nervous system transmit messages to and from the sense organ. So sense organ से normally peripheral nervous system जो है मैसेज को ट्रांसमिट करता है एंड इट इज रेस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर द वॉलंटरी एक्शन सच एज साइकिलिंग. नॉर्मली ये जो मैसेज पैदा होता है इसके लिए रेस्पॉन्सिबल कौन है? वॉलंटरी एक्शन सच एज साइकिलिंग, स्विमिंग एंड सो ऑन. Incoming messages enter the spinal cord from all parts of the body and reach the brain. सो नॉर्मली ये जो इम्पल्सेस होता है वेरियस बॉडी पार्ट से स्पाइनल कॉर्ड के द्वारा ब्रेन में पहुंचता है, विच सेंड्स बैक टू द मैसेज एंड वेरियस बॉडी पार्ट्स टू द स्पाइनल कॉर्ड. सो अगेन ब्रेन उसका जो नॉर्मली रिफ्लेक्स एक्शन होगा उस एक्शन को मैसेज के द्वारा स्पाइनल कॉर्ड से लेकर पूरा बॉडी पार्ट्स के अंदर फैल देता है. दैट इज द pathway of message transmission. Next, sense organ. There is a close coordination between central nervous system and sense organ. Stimuli such as heat, sound and light are detected by the different receptor. इसके नीचे दाग लगाना. Stimuli such as heat, sound and light are detected by different receptor. Receptors are special cells present in this sense organ that receive a stimulus from the environment. So इस पूरा जो यहाँ पे 2-3 लाइन है, these 3 lines are very important. Basically, stimulus like heat, sound and light are detected by different receptor. And what are the receptor? Receptor are the special cell present in the sense organ that receive any kind of stimulus from the environment. These sense organs are responsible for the reception of stimuli of sight, sound and smell, taste and touch. Each sense organ is directly connected with the brain. So each sense organ basically is directly connected with brain. There are 5 sense organs in the human body: eye, ear, nose, tongue and skin. These sense organs are connected to the brain through the different nerves. For examples, the eye is connected to the brain through the optic nerve and the ear is connected to the brain through the acoustic nerve. इसके नीचे दाग लगाना. For example, the eye is connected to the brain through the optic nerve. So here is optic nerve is acting for the connecting the eye with brain. Same way, the ear is connected with brain through the acoustic nerve. Acoustic nerve. As a short question, ये 2 just nerve का नाम याद रखना है. So student, hope all of you understood. So for today, up to this portion.